He started racing in 1952, and, you know, it was like Picasso, like a great artist doing his work. And he was in that car, and he was doing his work. But, you know, he couldn't get the support where other drivers that we were competing against had major sponsorship. He did everything that he did out of his own pocket. And as children, we didn't have that leisure time. You know, we couldn't go to the playground. He said to us, "I need you at the garage." I can remember him getting injured, and he'd just take axle grease and put it in the cut and keep working. But he wasn't allowed to race at certain speedways. He had death threats not to come to Atlanta. And Daddy said, "Look, if I leave in a pine box, that's what I got to do, but I'm going to race."
Greatest NASCAR beef of all time, Wendell Scott. Wendell Scott and Jack Smith.
You think?
To what other NASCAR driver pulled out a yapper at the race?
What's a yapper? Like now you, so yeah. It's a yapper.
They kind of helped me out over there.
Yeah, I know, but the people watching, everybody don't know what a yapper is. Yeah.
All right, let me tell you about that.
Just remember yapper.
Yeah, I know.
Pull out the yapper.
I know.
Okay, let me tell you about it. In the second year, my father in Cup, Grand National, he set a half-mile dirt track record in Savannah, Georgia. First man to ever run a half-mile dirt track under 26 seconds. So in the driver's meeting, we meet on the track for the meeting, you know, they gave it to him. He didn't really go that fast, right? Jack Smith walked up there, he said, when they dropped the green flag, he said, "I got 5 of these MF, and this one right here, I'm gonna run it clean through that raggedy ass Chevrolet of yours." Daddy said, "Well, Jack, if you pass me on the outside." So he got into a thing where he was bumping our car and wrecking my father, whatever. So my father got tired of it. And my father didn't allow us to carry weapons to the track because he knew we couldn't win. I mean, it's 4 or 5 of us, 20,000 people. But on this particular night in Valdosta, Georgia, Jack Smith pulled up beside my father and pointed his finger and said, "I'm gonna get you again tonight." And Dad had the pistol, and he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna get you."
Yapper.
Yapper. He said yapper.
Yapper.
He had the pistol in his car with him.
Greatest NASCAR beef of all time.
Yeah. If you see one of the docudramas we did, you'll see that they actually showed that. And you know what? He didn't bother us no more.
No more.
He slapped on brakes. We didn't have no more problem out of him.
Wow.
Yapper.
You know what my father said? "I got sick and tired of being sick and tired."
He turned to a part-time trade where his knowledge of building powerful engines and his fast driving skills would pay off.
His legacy before the racing was the bootleg.
Nearly 60 years later, one of Scott's bootleg runs is still legendary in Danville. On that day, a rival bootlegger tipped off the cops that Scott was making his Fall Creek run, leading out of town towards the old whiskey still.
At the end of the city limits, it's a road that literally is a snake road, and it goes downhill to a section called Fall Creek. And they had roadblocked him down there. Well, there was no way out. I mean, he couldn't run the roadblock. He couldn't turn the car around, so he had to back it out with them chasing him. And he left him. He left him, got out of their sight. Instead of doing the normal turnaround, he did a 180 and headed downtown where he had a shop, a place called Spring Street. Pulled the motor out the car. And when the police got there, the motor was swinging. And they said, "Wendell, we know we just chased you. What in the world?" This man, and he was real sullen and real quiet. "Man, I'm working on my car. I ain't got time, you know." So they took him. We had night court in Danville in those days. The judge said, what if y'all chased him? How was he working on the engine of the car? And as I understand, the engine was out. He said, "We don't know how he did that, but we know we just chased Wendell." So the judge dismissed the case and said, "Well, next time, bring me Wendell, the liquor, and the motor."
I can remember him racing in Jacksonville, and he beat them all. But they wouldn't drop the checkered flag. And then when they did drop the checkered flag, they had my father in 3rd place. One of the main reasons they gave was there was a white beauty queen, and they always kissed the driver.
It looked like it would have been when I won the race in Jacksonville, Florida in '63, but For a while, it wasn't a thrill because it was 2 or 3 hours later before I was declared the winner.
They flagged Buck Baker the winner.
Yeah. Jack Smith second, and I was third.
But you knew that you'd won the race.
I had passed Buck Baker 3 times. I only made 1 pit stop for gas and didn't lose a lap, and I knew I had won.
He finally got the money. But, of course, the trophy was gone.
60 years after Wendell Scott became the first black driver to win a race in NASCAR's Top Series, his family will finally receive his trophy. Scott won at Speedway Park in Jacksonville, Florida in 1963, but the win and trophy were initially credited to a white driver. NASCAR soon corrected the injustice, but never gave Scott his trophy. Well, that will finally change this weekend. Scott's family will receive a trophy during a ceremony ahead of Saturday's race at Daytona International Speedway.
Somebody asked me, so you got the trophy, the Jacksonville trophy, the Daytona trophy. I've had people ask me, what was the big deal about it? Yeah. And a lot of times it's not even malicious. It's just they really want to know. So you're talking about generational wealth. One thing about it is that trophy is a part of our worth. Yeah. It's an artifact. I tell you what, quick pop quiz. Name the first African-American to win a NASCAR race. It's Wendell Scott. It's every time. The answer gonna be Wendell Scott every time. So that trophy is the first of its kind.
Right.
That's one of one, right? Yeah. None before, none to come.
The fans were gone. The beauty queens were gone.
Did he ever consider not racing anymore?
Never.
I don't know of any other driver in NASCAR history who had to worry about when they left their home if they would die on the way to or from. I don't know of any other NASCAR driver. But the way he said that he was scared that he would die was from a sniper.
Oh, man.
That's what was in his mind. It wasn't the super speedways. It wasn't the Ku Klux Klan or any of that. It was somebody perched up in a tree hitting them from long range, because at that time, that's how our leaders were dying.
Wow.
Makes perfect sense.
That was one of my daddy's saying, when it's too tough for everybody else, it's just right for me.
We hear Jacksonville. We hear about March 4th. Mm-hmm. We don't really take time to digest 147 top 10 finishes, right? We don't take time to digest 495 career starts. We don't take time to digest where they slept at in the middle of the civil rights movement.
He always felt like someday he's gonna get his big break. But for 20 years, nobody mentioned Wendell Scott. But he didn't let it drive him crazy. I think that's what made him so great. He chose to be a race car driver, and he was gonna race until he couldn't race no more. He's one of the vanguards of the sport, man. He raced on the old Daytona Beach course in 54, 55, 56, 57, and 58. The only black man when they had 75, 80, 90 cars in the race. Mm. They didn't know he was black at first, because he was like light-skinned. He thought he was just a greasy white man, And then after he got his license, of course, but his first race, they didn't want to give his name because he was killing them in North Carolina and Virginia in the modified and sportsman division and everything. So when he first came, his first race, in Spartanburg, he was listed as W.D. Scott. Because if they said Wendell Scott, somebody would have known, hey, that's that black guy that's killing them up in Virginia and North Carolina.
And claimed 1 grand national victory, beating names like Petty, Pearson, and Jarrett. Wendell forged his racing apprenticeship as a whiskey runner up and down Tobacco Road. He built fast cars, and he outran the local police most of the time.
Oh, yeah. That's really how I got started in racing. They opened up a little small track in Danville called it Dixie Speedway, and they wanted to get some black drivers, and they thought they didn't know who to approach, so they went to the police department to find out what black guys had speeding records, things like that. So they told them they want somebody who could drive a race car to see me.
I look at Wendell Scott, we get a lot of pat on the back love because they think he was only the guy that won the one race. They don't know he won 128 races prior to entering the sport, right? They don't look at the success he had as a team owner. We talking about a team owner. We talking about a team owner who had white guys drive for him.
Yeah.
It's a whole big piece to it, you know, that for me, if I don't tell that story, then I begin to look what? I begin to look unintelligent. I begin to look like, hey, man, we're just this one-dimensional component, and, you know, this is a multi-dimensional enterprise. The cataclysmic effect of not attaining sponsorship throughout his NASCAR career, that's what trickled down from generation to generation.
Like I can remember one time when we were racing Atlanta 500, and he was sick. He needed an operation. And I said, Daddy, we don't have to race today. He whispered to me and said, lift my legs up and put me in the car. He drove 500 miles that day. We were racing Dover, Delaware, one in the race up there. And at that time, they let the fans actually come in the pits. And so someone offered my father what he thought was a cold cup of orange juice. But it was a Mickey.
Oh, wow.
And see, my father never drank or smoked. He hauled a little liquor, though. Mm-hmm. But you know...
you think he did? That's how you maximize the profit.
Right. From Maryland to...
Can't dip into the...
Yeah,
can't
from
dip
Maryland
into
to North Carolina and Charlotte, anyway. But anyway, that drink was a Mickey. And for 36 hours, man, my father, I had to hold him down. He didn't even know where he was or who he was. It was some powerful stuff, but his constitution was so strong. That's why I think he didn't die. So from that point on, for our family, if you didn't crack the top on it or come from the family, we didn't consume anything. We realized that, you know, that there are people out there that wanted to hurt you. He finished in the top 10, 25% of his races. He finished 70% of his races that he started. My father was a great humanitarian, man. We'd be on those bumpy, narrow swamps on the side, roads down in Alabama and Georgia. Somebody would be walking, he'd stop and pick them up. One Christmas, this lady came to the garage, and she had some relatives coming to town. She said, I was wondering if I could borrow a few dollars from you. I don't have nothing, you know. So Daddy went in. Daddy's dollar bills were always greasy. And he gave her money, money he had, and his change, and gave it to her. He said, buy what you need. So I'm like, damn, Dad, that's all you had, man. So I said, Dad, was that all you had? He said, yeah, but see, I can make some more, she can't. We were in Birmingham, Alabama, and that was 2 months after Martin Luther King was in Birmingham jail, racing at the fairgrounds. After the race, one of the NASCAR stewards came and said, Frank, said, where's your father? I said, he went to get paid off. He said, man, go get him. He said, y'all got to get out of here. You got a death threat. We got to, you know, he said, y'all need to get out of here. He said, tell him we'll mail him his check, you know. So I went and told Dad, you know, he said, man, I ain't, you know. I said, no, Dad, let's go. So they said they had a place they were gonna block us off and burn us, you know, we had the truck with the race up on top of it and gonna burn our racing down and whatever. So the guy told us the way to go. He said, don't go that way. He said, it's gonna put you out of the way, so you're gonna probably have to go about 50, 60, 70 miles out of the way, go towards Memphis, I think I heard him say. And that's what we did. So we dealt with some things like that. My father experienced.
We were in Daytona, and I said, Daddy, I said, man, I said, where did y'all stay? Because, so my grandfather's race car, it's a picture, it's a logo, a sponsor logo. The most famous race car he has, the Scott Blue Chevy that he won the Jacksonville in. It has Royal Beach Hotel on it.
Right.
And so I'm looking at the car and I'm saying, well, if he never had a sponsor, then why is Royal Beach Hotel even on the car? But he bought the car from another NASCAR driver who was sponsored. And when Daddy repainted the car, Papa told him to leave the Royal Beach Hotel on the car with hopes that someone would say, well, I guess they sponsoring black people now, right? So maybe this will help trap somebody into sponsoring. Again, it's those type of things that he experienced that nobody else in the sport ever had to experience.
Let me say something to you though, man. You made me think about a quote my daddy used to use. And my father said, look, just because I lose a race, it don't mean I'm defeated.
The car I got hurt in at Talladega. This is a picture of the car. That was the best car I ever drove, but I didn't really get a chance to do my best with it because it was on the 8th or 9th lap when they had this real bad wreck, and I was right in the middle of them. And it tore the car all to pieces.
That's amazing. So that's the one you got hurt in?
That's the one I got hurt in right there.
Well, of course, that's the kind of memories you don't really want to have, is it?
I don't like to think of the financial part of it. Because I got hurt pretty bad, you know. Broke my leg in 7 places. Tore his arm all to pieces.
The Wendell Scott Foundation is a completion of a dream that my father, a vision that my father had over 50 years ago. Back then, we raced 2 or 3 nights a week. You know, when my father was doing modified sports, he raced every night, 6 nights a week, and twice on Sunday. And so we were sitting in this restaurant. We found a restaurant we could eat breakfast in. Most of the places, you know, after we traveled, we couldn't, want no restaurants, want no Hardee's, want no McDonald's. Oh, man.
He be watching.
I wish we could have got a McDonald's.
He know. Pop know.
And so my father was sitting there, and I was sitting beside him, like where Warwick is. He said, he was looking, he was just staring out. I said, Dad, come on, man. I said, we hadn't eaten anything in over 24 hours. I said, come on, food's out, let's go eat. He said, no. He said, no. He said, see those kids out there? He said, some of them don't have shoes on. Some of them don't have shirts on. There's no telling where they slept last night. He said, I'm almost positive they haven't had any breakfast. He said, if I ever become wealthy, doing what I'm doing, I'm gonna build orphanage homes all over the South for kids like that, and not just black kids.
Not just black kids.
50 plus years later, works in the nightclub business in Raleigh, which my wife and I didn't want him in.
It was lit.
And
West Side Stories.
Yeah, the spot.
And so one night he called home, about 2:30 in the morning, 2:15. And the first thing my wife said, what's wrong? What happened? And Warwick heard me. He said, tell Mama ain't nothing wrong. Ain't nothing wrong. So Shanique and I made a decision. We decided to move back to Danville and start a Wendell Scott Foundation.
Yeah.
He didn't know anything about what his grandfather said over 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Cut it off.
There you go. Did that pretty well end your career in Grand National racing?
Well, yes, it really did. I went right much in debt because I hadn't been doing good. And my boys told me either get in the race or get out of the race. So I borrowed money on my property and bought me a real good car and got a 12-piece first time.
And then, of course, you had some physical injuries as well, too. So.
Yeah. But it took me 9 years to pay for that car.
Is that right? Boy, you got a lot of memories to think back over and things I guess you'd say, well, boy, I wish I hadn't done that.
No, I'd do it all over again.
You would?